Why has South Africa's unemployment rate increased to 25.5% in the third quarter of 2015? Isn't the slow economic growth an indication that the country is in a recession? And how does a marked decline in mining and manufacturing affect ordinary South Africans? And how has the devaluation of the Chinese yuan affected African countries? What time is it? It's question time. Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Mpho Seidi. Statistics South Africa has recently announced that South Africa's unemployment rate increased to 25.5% in the third quarter of this year. Ironically, the absorption rate was lowest among the youth, while it was highest among adults. In his recent medium-term budget review, Finance Minister Nhlanhla Nene stated that government employment has been declining since 2012. Meanwhile, analysts indicate that an economic slowdown in China continues to take a toll on emerging markets. A reminder that this is a live program, and therefore, you can call us and air your views. The number to dial is 089-110-4210. Our Twitter handle @QuestionTime24. My guest today, Dadepadi Lehohla, is the statistician general from Statistics South Africa.
No, of South Africa.
Oh, of South Africa rather. And Mamkheti Molopiane, labor and mining analyst at Creative Voodoo Consulting. Let me welcome you both. Dade Lehohla, let me start with you. This 25.5% story, which country are you talking about? I mean, I go to Soweto now, and it looks like it's a weekend. People are not working, yet you say it's 25.5%. Ordinarily, I would say I want to differ with you. It's more.
Well, I would ask you, how did you measure if you differed with me? But I think there is a point you are making, because the 25.5% is the official unemployment rate, which is a rate whereby if you have not worked in the last week, 7 days, but you sought work, then that will be, you'll fall in that 25%. But it's also true that over a period of time, you haven't actually looked for work because the costs of search are very high, and the shoes, when they start looking you in the face and they have a hole underneath the sole has a hole, you can't continue searching for a job because you know that the labor market is very depressed. When you add that, then you come up to 35%. And then, of course, if you look at youth by different categories of age, then you come to something like 40%. And when you come to adults, that unemployment would come to about 17%. When you start analyzing this unemployment by education levels, I hope that the graphs could come, you will realize that for those with tertiary education, their unemployment is at about 8%. And in fact, that unemployment level, when you look at unemployment by race, is the unemployment largely that is seen amongst whites. So once you have tertiary education, you transform almost into a white unemployed person. Amongst blacks, of course, uneducated and everything. It's a serious matter, upwards of 27%.
Okay, so you're saying that, I think we'll have something on screen now. Employed, well, that graph has disappeared. But, I was hoping that they would just put it up there and we can just refer to it so that we talk to figures that we can see on screen. For instance, okay. Employed people in South Africa are what, 15 million? Unemployed, 5.4 million. And economically inactive, 14.9. Who are those?
The 14.9 million who are economically inactive are your house husbands or housewives.
Okay.
Those are the ones that are unemployed. Of course, when you, or rather not, are those who are inactive and then students. But when you look at that graphic that is up there, the national development plan says, well, By 2030, there must be 24 million people employed. And when you look at absorption rate, which is the rate at which labor is absorbed,
yes,
of those who are economically active, will be 61%, and so on. But the truth of the matter in that graphic that was up, that moved away, unemployment is at 25.5%, absorption rate is in the 40s, 43% instead of 61%. Yeah.
Okay.
And then labor participation rate, which is the rate at which people who are economically active are actively engaged in that. It's about, NDP wishes to have it at 65%, and at the moment it's still at the low 40s.
Okay. Let's just check with you. Obviously, Dr. Nhlanhla is giving us numbers, and as they say, numbers wouldn't lie. How bad is the situation for a simple person who may not be able to comprehend these figures and the complexities are, involved here?
I'm going to try and simplify it and say, in a population of South Africa that we have, the numbers that we were seeing on the screen, basically they say there are not enough people working in South Africa. We have a few numbers of people who are working, as you saw, and then we have inactive, economically inactive people and unemployed people. Yes. Those two figures, when you add them, outnumbers the number of people who are employed. So our economy is struggling to carry the weight of those. And therein lies the challenge, as you heard in that Nhlanhla saying that the absorption rate of people who must be employed or economically active or engaged in labor is just not enough. It's not at a percentage or at a number that we would like to have it. Now, remember that if a country has a set amount of people, let's say 20 million people, but of those 20 million, only 2 million people are working. That means the income generated by the 2 million that is working must carry over and support those who are not working. Now, in the context of South Africa, where we have three key structural issues of inequality, unemployment, and poverty. This means it's unsustainable. Our economy cannot afford to have so many people being either economically inactive or unemployed.
Dr. Nhlanhla, you're saying the formal sector accounts here for the largest share of employment at 69.1%, almost 70%. Unlike in other countries where, in America, when the politicians boast about employment that has been created, they are basically talking about, your casual, temporary laborers and all that. Who are we talking about here?
No, we are talking about those included. Your comparison would be, suppose we were to go to Nigeria, then you'll find that the informal sector accounts for a very huge number of people in employment. In South Africa, yes, indeed, it's about 70% formal sector, and then the remainder 30% is in the informal sector. On the continent, it is the other way around, if not almost entirely the informal sector, because the manufacturing sectors are relatively small. Agriculture plays a major role.
Yes.
In South Africa, if you were to compare the results here of South Africa's employment, you would realize that if you were to compare them with Brazil, when you come to agriculture, there is a substantial number of people in Brazil that in agriculture. In South Africa, it's totally a minuscule number that are in agriculture. So agricultural employment, because of mechanization, is very minuscule in South Africa.
Now, you also have this discouraged work seekers who are accounting for 15%.
Yes, there are about 4 million or so people who are 3.5 million people who are discouraged. That is where they are not in the numbers 25.5%. When you add them up, the numbers go up to about 37%, 35% as people who are unemployed. They are discouraged because the costs of job search are high. If you know that you are not likely to get a job, you don't search for a job. if you look at the numbers of people that are unemployed quarter on quarter or year on year over a period of time, we are hovering at the 25% mark. So 0.5 up, 0.5% low doesn't make a big difference. We are in that stable state of high unemployment.
Now, you then ask yourself, are these people unemployable or are they employable?
Well, it is such a regrettable term, really, the term unemployable people. And I'll keep on referring to the South African context of education, of an education system that deprives people of opportunities, but also even the current education system is not providing enough for people to be able to find jobs. So hence you have what Ndadelo Hotla has called people who are discouraged from looking for jobs. I mean, I'm from a small town outside Breds, and if you look at people who are from such small town, for them, for example, for such an individual to go and look at the internet, things that you and I, the middle class black, have such an easy access to, they have to catch a bus from their rural village to the nearby village and maybe catch a taxi to town to only be able to access internet, and they do not have such kind of things. So it discourages them from looking further for jobs. And that is the challenge of South Africa. We often find that more insulated at rural areas because of how rural areas are structured and the access to facilities and so forth.
Okay, I want us to take a break, but when we return, I'm going to be very blatant with you. We must talk race matters as well. Who is unemployed and why are they not employed? Race matters. This is question time. When we return, we'll be taking your calls as well. 089-110-4210. What do you think of the question of employment or unemployment here in South Africa? The number to dial 089-110-4210. Please don't go away.
SABC News. We report, contextualize and present news and current affairs honestly, fairly and fully. We consider it a duty to provide consistent, relevant, useful and top quality information and analysis. Our mission is to provide credible, accurate and interesting news programming, bringing news into everyone's homes in everyone's languages. Thank you, South Africa, for relying on SABC News for quality news output and for making us your #1 source of information. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. My guest, Ntatipadi Lohla, statistics.
Statistician General.
Yes, but
of South Africa.
Of South Africa.
Not of Statistics South Africa.
Okay.
No, you are reducing the power the Act gives.
Okay.
The Statistician General.
All right. And Mamkheti Molopiani, of course, they are my guest. Muzi, you are calling us from Durban.
From Pietermaritzburg.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. You're in KZN, Pietermaritzburg. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you sir. Greetings to everyone at the studio.
You're welcome.
And greetings to all viewers at home.
Yes.
Actually, I've got few points here which I think we have to thank the South African government for open opportunities for trade, especially for investors in South Africa. So I believe if you look at the NDP, it does allow the issue of industrialization. So if you check industrialization on its own, if you can give the local communities a chance to actually be allowed to manufacture clothing for schools, things like uniforms, tracksuit, it can be able to assist the local people to stand on their own. Okay. The second point also, if you look social development on their own, if they can actually stretch in terms of organizations such as NGOs, cooperatives, in terms of assisting, especially in South Africa. We are fortunate that we've got so much social workers which can assist the country in terms of tackling social issues. Take, for example, the issue of xenophobia, the issue of now smartphone.
Okay.
All those things. If we had social workers in universities, if we had social workers at schools, if we had social workers at municipal level, in that manner, we can be able to cut down unemployment.
Okay.
Almost 1 million social workers can be employed in our country if we can properly stretch or allow people like us to contribute in the society, because there are programs, we have programs which can assist the government in ensuring that we cut down unemployment.
Thank you very much, Muzi. Perhaps a quick one. Is the NDP really at a level where the hoi polloi understand that it is there for them?
Look, it has been debated thoroughly, it has been engaged thoroughly, there has been a consultative process about it. However, I've always felt that it hasn't really filtered down to the ordinary people on the ground. Do remember that President Zuma did say that it is our blueprint moving forward as South Africa and how we tackle the many challenges that we're facing, but also how we tackle development of the country. And I do think it needs to be emphasized to the ordinary people as to what it is about when it comes to unemployment and employment. Okay,
before we go into this slide, let me take Dagi, you're calling us from the Val. Welcome.
Good evening, my friend. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm okay. Listen, I'd just like to get some clarity on from the stats man.
Okay.
The man that does the stats.
Yes.
When he does the stats, how does he work it from? Does he work it from the census, or does he work it where does he get his actual figures from?
Okay.
And then what about all the people that are coming in from the immigrants and all that
from
that are coming into the country? Is he calculating all that that's giving him that figure? How's he getting to his figures? That's what I'd like to know.
Okay.
You know, and then of course we need to get rid of the unions, man. To give people work, you need to get rid of the unions.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I'm telling you.
All right. Thank you very much for the call, Dagi.
Yes, let me. The numbers that we have come from a quarterly labor force survey, which is a sample survey covering, and I mean, it's representative across country by race, by place, and so on. It covers 30,000 households every quarter, and it is a panel survey, so to say, and you track people and you rotate the panel every fourth quarter.
Okay.
So it's a very reliable, you are looking at a person over 3 quarters, and then this is how you calculate these numbers from that.
Okay. Now, let's look at income, age, and level of education slide. What is it saying here?
I don't know whether I'm able to stand up and point to the graph. Maybe
perhaps what we'll do, we'll just ask them to put it on our bigger screen there. Then we can go to. We can go to.
Yes, yeah.
Let's do that. Hold your mic here.
I see. See what this screen suggests, and unfortunately the one on race is not here.
Okay.
But I will proxy the education levels for race.
Yes.
What this suggests is here we are looking at when do you actually access income.
Okay.
And income as a source, or rather income coming from active work.
Okay.
And here is your age. On this axis you are looking at age from 20 to 80 plus.
All right.
When you don't have schooling, your chances of getting income are about 30%. Is the residual upwards that way. It means you are 70% unlikely to get income when you have no schooling. When you have grade 11, your chances of getting schooling, you can see this graph moves this way. And mark this point here, mark this point here. They are very sharp. It's as though it's the front part of the bus.
Yes.
And they all come at about age 65.
All right.
It means when you don't have schooling or you go up to grade 12, the the only time you will start getting income is when you reach 65.
Okay.
All the time, you will always have difficulty in getting income.
And are you talking about, what do you call it, social grants here?
Yes, here it is social grants. There you see fewer people are without income. And
Yes.
it's the impact of social grants. But when we have diploma, you see the graph, it shows that you can actually start any income relatively early in life and you continue. But when you have a degree,
Okay.
there you are, you have income throughout. So education is very, very critical. And this graph would actually be talking to whites largely. It talks to everybody who has a bachelor's degree. And if you looked at the graph before it, you'll see that unemployment amongst those who are in tertiary education across age is very low. It's about 7% as opposed to those without education. So it explains the power of education.
All right. Tony, you are calling us from Pretoria.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well, thanks, my brother.
I'm well, Mpo. I want to look at this at another angle.
Okay.
Are we like the people who are not employed? Like, can you also look at what causes that unemployment? Because some other people get jobs, they don't take them serious, they don't go to work, others go to work drunk, they get fired. So they add the number of people who are not unemployed. Other people, they choose jobs. They don't want to do this job. So you find that there are jobs available, but they don't want to do those jobs. So can maybe the Director General from State maybe also look at maybe there are people who don't want to work because of they don't like the jobs that are offered to them, and others get the jobs, but they end up losing the jobs because of behavior. They steal at work, they fight at work, they are late at work, things like that. Are they also looked at when looking at unemployment, not only looking at whether there are not enough jobs for South Africans?
All right, thank you very
Paul.
much. Ndadulus.
Well, I mean, those kinds of extremes happen on the margins. The numbers here show what happens in a society. So, yeah, there could be people who are negligent at work, they get fired. But more generally, I think the graphs do show the power of education, that when you have an educated society, the likelihood of getting jobs is much more. And of course, one has to choose what kind of education as well. It's not all tertiary education that will give you jobs.
I wanted to say to Mamlopen here that are the tertiary institutions, are they training people relevantly?
Well, when you look at the number of qualifications that are coming out of our tertiary institutions and you compare it with the number of employability of those graduates, you find that there's often a mismatch of skills or a mismatch of qualifications. But more importantly, there seems to be a lagging behind of the private sector in enabling, in opening up the environment that allows for graduates to be easily employed. I mean, we still have some of the highest number of graduates who are unemployed.
Okay.
Even with government having said, here are the incentives, private sector, we want you to absorb some of our graduates that are coming from our tertiary institution, we are still seeing that there is a stumbling block there. And that question must be taken back to the private sector to say, government has incentivized and allowed platform for you to absorb and give you schemes that can help you in terms of hiring fresh graduates. Okay. What are you doing about it?
You know, the other thing is that there is always a subtle racism in the soul of all these things. A graduate who is black from the same university and a graduate who is white from the same university, it takes 3 times more for a black graduate to get a job. So there are all those social capital linkages that inhibit black entry into this. And of course, I mean, it's all a question of socialization. You don't go to a golf course, you don't, you know. So all those things are barriers to entry. It's an area that has to be addressed.
Okay.
But in the main, education is really the main cracker of this inequality.
Unfortunately, we've come to the end of the program. It ran quite quickly there, but thank you very much for the time. That was question time for today. A big thank you to my guests and to you for watching this show. From me and the crew, have yourself a wonderful time. Goodbye.